Okay, so a lot of these first ones here were from before I got here. You remember the previous teacher included this one. What does product mean in math? It does mean to multiply, and if you couldn't tell, Muhammad, this one actually even says to multiply. So besides product, it also tells you that you're going to multiply those two polynomials. So the question becomes, well, how do you multiply? What's the method that we use to multiply polynomials? It's like distribution. It's kind of like it, but
Come back with your. No, it's not. I don't know what it's called, but I know how it's supposed to. Oh, it's like you get. You get the wax. No, you get that egg. Oh my god.
that was helpful and Trumbo said this is called FOIL. Okay. FOIL is an acronym. It sounds for first, outer, inner, last, but I don't really teach the meaning of it too much because FOIL is only helpful in this case when you're multiplying binomials specifically. It isn't really helpful in any other instances. Okay. Now, I'd be kind of surprised because this being my first year in Georgia, at the last school I was at, a lot of kids didn't like doing it the way that you were describing. Yes, what is foiling? Foiling is kind of like repeated distribution. And that's the way I've always taught it. Okay, what is x times x? Is x squared. X times 1 is x. Negative 6 times x is negative 6x. Negative 6 times 1 is minus 6. So we get x squared minus 5x minus 6, combined like terms. Okay. But if you want to, most of the kids that I've shown this today have never even heard of this. So I'm not even saying one way is better than the other. The only reason I even started including this is because at the last school, a lot of kids did it. It's something called the box method. So I mean, I'll show you just in case you like it, just in case. I really don't think one way is better than another. But I've always taught it the way you see it already on the board. But the box method says, okay, how many terms does the first polynomial have? 2 terms here. How many terms does the second one have? 2. Also 2. So I need to make a grid that is 2 by 2, that has 2 rows and 2 columns. On the outside of like vertically and horizontally, you write each term. So like the x minus 6, I would write x here, and then minus 6. I also could have written that across the top if I wanted to. Across the top, I write the other one, x, and then a plus 1, a positive 1. And then everywhere that 2 terms intersect, you multiply. X times x is
X squared.
X times 1 is
X1.
X1, no, it's just x. What's negative 6 times x is negative 6x, and then negative 6 times. The same way I got these 4 terms here. Now I have those 4 terms there. I have x squared plus x minus 6x minus 6. And they still combine to give you x squared minus 5x minus 6. So I should have 2 different ways of doing it. You pick whichever one you like the best. Which one do you like better, Mohammed? Do you like using a hall pass when you go into the hallway?
What?
Wah, wah. Any other questions on this one? Okay, subtracting radicals. One class today that I had seemed pretty knowledgeable with this, the other one not so much. In order to subtract, you should have done this year before I got here. In order to subtract radicals, what needs to be true?
The inside has to be.
That's good, yeah, and that even has a name. What's the inside called?
Radical.
Close.
Irradical.
Irradical.
Radio.
A radio? A ratio? Like when something. Very good, a radicand. I like radicals, so that's why. That's not fair. I said it first.
Okay, and
He's just trying to earn my respect. That's why. It's more important than candy. Okay, so clearly the radicans, which are, as Mohammed said, the number that's on the inside, they're not the same here. So these cannot be subtracted as is. Can we make them the same? Maybe. Usually you can, because if not, they wouldn't give you the problem. But it just so you know, it's not guaranteed. You got to do a factor tree with the numbers on the inside. The factor tree that you know might be slightly different than the way I show it. It's the same thing, but see, like more than likely, your teachers taught you to say, oh, 24. I know that is 4 times 6. And 4, I know is 2 times 2, and this is 2 times 3. And hey, I'm done. If you know how to do it that way, I'm fine with it. I don't have a problem with it. The problem with doing it that way is that it's very reliant on mental math, and the majority of you guys are not strong with mental math. And the other drawback, yeah, if a number gets too big, forget it. It's not going to help you. And the other drawback is that the kids don't know when to finish. They stop too soon. The tree doesn't have as many branches as it should have. So the way I like to show it, I like to just stick to prime numbers. What's a prime number? No, you're thinking of perfect squares. What's a prime number? Prime number is a number that can only be divided by 1 in itself. What are prime numbers often confused with? Odd numbers. Every prime number is odd with the exception of 1. There's only one even prime number, which is 2. But not every odd number is prime. Now, because 24 is even, I only divide by prime. When I do the trees, I only divide by prime numbers. So I brought out a 2 first because I know 24 is even. What's 24 divided by 2? 12. 12 is still even, so 2 again is 6, and that's still even with 2, which is 3. No, because either way that we did it, that's exactly right. Regardless of which way I did it, you still end up with 3 2s and a 3. Now with a 6, 6 is just, and the way I like about this is that you know when you're done, because on the way down, you hit a prime number. Once you hit a prime number going down, it means you're done. Now what I'm also hoping you've learned before is that, okay, these are numbers that are inside of a radical. What is 2 times 2 times 2 times 3? It's 24. Okay, so we broke down the 24 into a product of primes so that if I can't bring out the entire 24, maybe I could bring out part of it. In order to come outside, those prime numbers have to pair up. So I do have a pair of 2s, but I cannot pair up any other numbers. And the 6 has no pairs. So this 24 already had a negative 3 on the outside. It's going to be joined not by 2 2s, by 1 2. 2 prime numbers on the inside is the same as 1 prime number on the outside. Jordan, what is negative 3 times 2? It is negative 6. What's going to stay on the inside? Whatever was left over on the tree. The leftovers on the tree were just 2 and 3. Those were left over. Those stay on the inside. 2 times 3 is 6. Now on the second tree, I had no pairs. I don't have enough to pair up there. So nothing can come out. So that second radical is going to stay exactly the same, minus 2 square root of 6. Before, the radicals were not the same. Now they are. So I get to keep my square root of 6 the same. The numbers that get combined are what's on the front, the coefficients. What's negative 6 minus 2? Hiram, that's talking more listening, Hiram. Huh? It is negative.
Oh my God.
You want to take a moment to showboat, brag a little bit? Ha ha, the teacher likes me better than you. Ha 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 ha. Any questions on that? Last period, at least I liked it because somebody had the courage to actually say, look, I have no idea what's going on. So, and this was before I got here. So if you're not sure how I got any of these numbers, say something now. Hiram? Well, remember, a lot of it was talking. A lot of it was just talk. You were talking, I was talking, we were talking. So, somebody that knows what they're doing should do this in less than a minute, I would say. Yeah. It stayed on the inside. 2 times 3 is 6. That 3 and that 2 became this 6 on the inside. This 2 and this 3 just stayed as the 6 on the inside. Because I didn't have enough to pair up. Yeah.
So if we don't do that on a test, we get it wrong. Yes. Like if you don't do the same step.
It's a loaded question. That's not an easy question to answer.
Yeah, I mean, like, okay, let's say you made that answer on
Okay.
the test, right? And then like, then we're gonna do those steps, we get it wrong.
And like I said, that's a loaded question. That isn't as easy as a black and white answer. Okay, I can tell you that on something now this one's actually not too complex. Like somebody that's really sharp could theoretically do this in the I could do this in my head. I wouldn't have to do all this. But yeah, for something like this, yeah, it's not that much. It's not that much. Okay, but more than likely on something like this, if a student were to just put an answer on a test, how did they come about that answer? And then let's assume it's the right answer. Okay. Problem at the top, and then all they do is put the answer. No work. Your question was, do we have to show all that?
No, I'm saying like if you don't use those exact same steps.
Well, okay. Now, if the only thing is that your steps are different, well, then I can't answer because it depends on how different they are. Your steps would have to have a logical progression as to, okay, like this is what I got first, this is what I got second, and yeah, it might look slightly different, but that's something separate. I thought you were asking if there's no work at all. Like, do we have to show work? So now answer my question. If somebody doesn't show work, more than likely, how do they get that answer?
Cheating.
Could be cheating. Could be guessing, especially if it's multiple choice, or the last one be a calculator. Okay. Under normal circumstances, I would say that any of those three are not good enough. Okay. That's always how I've been. But in the current climate that we're in with school, now a teacher has to be ready to defend themselves because God forbid a student gets the right answer and the teacher marks it wrong. Now that parent or the kid is going to complain and that's not fair and that's not fair. So really what I've been doing is I've been kind of going with the flow of whatever the Algebra I teachers have decided. If they're going to be strict on work, then I'll be strict. Like you have a test coming up that's not going to be multiple choice, and we were talking about it today, and there's certain problems that ask you to not only get an answer, but do it a certain way. Yeah, then everybody else is doing it, so I'm going to do it too. On some of these other ones, it's not like I'm saying not to show work, but I haven't been strict on it just because I'm not prepared to. I'm tired of that. Yeah. Yeah, then you would at least know some statistics. All right, what's different here? Okay, good. So the rules are different. With multiplying, now the radians do not have to be the same, and it's just inside with inside, outside with outside. The only variation would be when do you choose to multiply? Because sometimes these radicals can be simplified first, just like we did here with the tree. Okay? I don't like doing it that way because you might do a tree first, to then multiply, to then have to do a tree again. Danny, do you think we could do something else constructive with our time other than that? So I like to multiply first. Now, okay, I'll concede. What's the drawback of multiplication? What happens normally when what happens normally when you multiply numbers? They get bigger, right? So you might reach a point where you're like, oh man, that number's too big. I can't do a tree. Hiram, more listening, less talking, more listening. I think there's more positives of doing it this way. So outside with outside, inside with inside. 5 times -3 is -15. 12 times 6 is 72. You decide how you want to do the tree. I like to just stick to my prime numbers. What is 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 3?
72.
It is 72. So now when I go and pick fruit off the trees, I can only pick them out of the tree if they're in pairs. So I have enough to bring out a 2 and a 3. Who's going to stay behind? So on the inside, I'm just going to have this 2 that's left over. On the outside, I already had a -15. Being joined by not 2 2s, by just one single 2. 2 on the inside is the same as, because this, remember, this 72 came from inside. -15 times 2 is -30. Times the 3 down here at the bottom. That's why he gets all the girls. All of them. Elizabeth, any questions? Okay, a rectangle. This was the one I was told you was a double question. This was formatted as 2. It asked you for 2 things. It asked you for area, and it asked you for perimeter. You got a question, Mohammed? Question? No, there's no need to. It's outside of the radical.
I know.
I know it is. It's Kristen. Just go and come right back. So even though we haven't taken geometry yet, though, what's the formula for area of a rectangle? Yeah, that's one with. What's the formula for perimeter?
Length plus width. Plus length plus width.
Okay.
Are you?
He can't. That's the thing. He's not capable of it. He can't. He can't. Like it's like his nerves. He has to always be talking. He has to hear his voice. See, I at least will concede. I hate the sound of my voice. It's just I picked this profession for some reason, and I have to be talking all the time. But it's like at the end of the day, I have a headache from hearing my own voice. Hiram, not so much. He loves the sound of his voice. So Muhammad actually brought up a very good point because he went through everything. The majority of you find perimeter just by adding up all the sides. And that'll work here. This is a rectangle, so if the right is 2x plus 3, the left is 2x plus 3. If the top is 4x plus 8, the bottom is 4x plus 8, and they just add. But he also said that there's 2 lengths and 2 widths. So actually, if you look in the book will tell you that it's 2 lengths plus 2 widths, 4 sides in total. You okay? All right. No, you gotta wait till Jasmine comes back. Okay, so let's find area. How would I find the area here?
Alright, so 2x plus 3 times 4x plus 8.
Meaning what method am I gonna use? Foil. Good. Foil.
Yeah.
So I'll speed this up. We already did this today. So area is 4x squared plus 16x plus 12x plus 24. What was the answer for area? Oh wait, I'm sorry. I did it wrong. I got a candy about that. You would have realized it before But But then you will also ask for perimeter, and the perimeter would be 2 of those 2x plus 3's plus 2 of the 4x plus 8's. Or you could just come up here and say, geez, if I go around the world, how many x's do I have?
4x is 8, no, that's 6. You have 4x is 8. And then 12.
You're not going to hear me say this more very often, but listen to Hiram. Go ahead, Hiram. Yeah, there are 12 x's. If you go around, there's 12 x's. And then what is 3 plus 8 plus 3 plus 8? 22. So I already know it's going to be D, but let's just prove it. 4x plus 6 plus 8x plus 16. Perimeter is 12x plus 22. Any questions there? Blanca, anything? Mental note? You can just write it down. I have a hammer and chisel if you want. You can just. No, you can go back and watch on the video.
Okay.
It will be tonight.
Alright. Oh, I was confused.
Right? Solving an equation?
I know.
Well, what do you want to do, Mohammed?
So what you do first? With the 3.
No. Why?
No.
Just go left and right. Just say distribute. You're trying to be too fancy. You just lost 3 gross phone numbers and you didn't even know it. Remove the parentheses by distributing. And then. Good. Where are my like terms, Hiram?
3x plus
Good. That's negative 3x plus 45.
I'm not dumb, so I forgot the word.
I'm not done yet. Well, what are you guys all bummed out about?
I'm not. No, because I forgot the 1 to the 18, so I just wrote it as a regular 8 and minus equals 8.
Crystal, what do you want to do next? No, we don't have any lectures. Oh, I wouldn't.
No,
Daniel? Yeah, I want to put the x's together. Out of a preference, I like to move the smaller coefficient. So what's smaller, negative 3 or negative 6? 6. So I'm going to go plus 6x. So now, Crystal, all the x's are moved over to the left. If a term does not have an x, it has to go bye-bye because the x's are taken over. So which term does not have an x on the left? Which term does not have an x on the left? On the left side. On the left side of the equal sign, what term does not have an x? All right, so I'm going to go minus 45, minus 40 fizzle. So, no, positive. Positive 3x is equal to negative 27 divided by 3. Which brings up an interesting point. I feel like there was one class that I didn't remind, but I know I've told all my classes. Yeah, so you can't sit still. You're not writing anything, so.
I'm not doing that.
Just pretend.
I'm not doing that.
So it's yours, but you didn't throw it. Are the girls picking on you again? They're taking your stuff from you? So, and you're going to want to know this because tomorrow's test is on the same platform. What did I ask you to do as far as entering your answers? Put the number. So like in something like this, just put the negative 9 because it was true response. Now look, I went back on this one and I went person by person. And if you wrote like x equals negative 9 or you wrote something, you just like you wrote it differently, but you got the right solution, I accepted it. I will not go do that on the retake that's due tomorrow. And I'm not going to do it on tomorrow's test either. So by now you should know how these things work. Now I think tomorrow's test might be all multiple choice for it. On anything else in the future that has free response, just put the number.
Oh.
Any other questions? Here's another equation. Yes. And Fridays. Yeah. Tell me what to do. Yeah, -2.
And what you want to do, you want to move it from the variable.
Plus 2x on both sides.
And then you want to subtract the 4.
Good. Bring the 4 to the other side.
Oh, yeah.
Subtract out. So -12 is equal to 4x divided by 4. Somebody actually even wrote -3 equals x, which I had to go back and on my own and tell the computer to accept it, but that's annoying for me to have to do. So just write the -3. Again, because it's too hard when you're typing something in. There's too much. How about if somebody puts a space between the x and the equal sign, and then the equal sign and the -3? Like all those things, all those little fluctuations can get it to mark it wrong. So the way that I can guarantee you that it's going to mark it right is if you just put the number. Anything else, I might have to go back. I try to program it to take more than one answer, but I cannot account for every single little possibility that somebody will put. So the one way I can guarantee you it's going to be marked right is if you just put the number. Obviously, it has to be the correct number. Right, Parov? Literal equations. You did this maybe a week and a half before you got to me. And the problem with these is that you guys overthink these. A literal equation or a formula is just an equation that has multiple variables. This has 3 different variables. And in that case, they have to tell you which variable to solve for, which in this case, they're telling you to solve for D. So the thing is, all you have to worry about is isolating. That's it. And people get frustrated because they must add, must subtract. No. Really, this is just a rearrangement. Morgan, what do you want to do first here? If I want to get the D by itself, I want to isolate the D. What do I got to get rid of first? Good, I can do that by doing -EF. And look, case in point. Oh, that's like, 6EF. No, they're not like terms. They can't be combined. So just leave it the same. Drop it as if it was hot. 6E minus EF. And that's equal to 3D. What's the last step? Divide by 3. You might be just antsy and you might want to, must divide 6 by 3. I know that one. But you can't do it to both of them, so don't do it at all. Okay. Inequalities?
Oh.
Let's talk to Elena. What do you want to do first? Okay, so 15 plus 6n greater than or equal to 7 plus 10. And Ariani, what do you want to do next? Okay, I like that too. That's what I would have done also, but I will say this. If this is an equation, it doesn't matter what side of the equal sign the variable ends up on because it's an equation equal, both sides are the same. On an inequality, it does. And if you look at all of these answer choices, they all have the n on the left side. So look, I actually agree with you. I would do the same thing. I would do -6n and move the n's to the right. But you have to remember to take that into account when you finish. If the n's are going to go to the right, Crystal, what do you want to do next? Good. -7, -7. So 8 greater than or equal to 4n. Again, Hiram's favorite thing is dividing by 4. And you get 2 greater than or equal to n. But you got to be careful now when you're comparing what you got to the answer choices that are given to you because you have the n on the right they have the n on the left. Some teachers may have taught you to flip this like a mirror. If you know how to do it, that's fine. If not, I like to think of Pac-Man. So I have an or equal to sign with Pac-Man eating the 2. Which one here has Pac-Man eating the 2 with the or equal to sign? Mouth eating the 2? Mouth eating, open end eating the 2. Any questions there? Okay, 9 is the same thing, but just now with a graph also. But we got to solve Parav. What do you want to do first? I wouldn't move it. You could, but here there's only one x, so I like to leave this x where it's at. Okay, how do you want to move the 4? Good, -4. Andrew, that leaves me negative 4x greater than or equal to negative 8. What do you want to do next, Andrew? Bye. Good. Uh-oh. Spaghettios. In inequality, what happens if you divide by a negative, Mohammed? So now the mouth faces away from the x. So the fact that we have an or equal to sign means that I'm going to have a closed dot, and it's going to be at a 2, and the mouth is not eating the x, so we're going to go to the left. Which one of these choices has shading to the left from 2 with a closed dot? Okay, the next, now we have some problems here that are just like translating, like reading a different language. They tell you that S stands for Sue's age, is always stands for equal, Jack's age is J, twice means times 2, and 12 years less means minus 12. But see, the thing is, you got to be careful how you write it. Do not write this, do not write this, do not write this, do not write this. The thing is, a lot of people will write S equals 12 minus 2J. But subtraction is not commutative. In order to take something away, it has to be there first. So in order for me to take 12 away from 2J, the 2J has to come first. This can also be confirmed by what I wrote up here. Look at what I wrote. The 12, what did it have in front of it? It had a negative. And then the 2J. How old it's not gonna work. I mean, I was gonna, because the way I wanted to phrase it was, how old was Sue when Jack was born? Because I wanted you to recognize it would be the y-intercept. But no, nobody can be negative 12 years old. No, you have us backwards. Jack was 6 when Sue was born. Jack was born first. This one was, like, this keeps on getting me. This was missed a bunch on the test that we just took, and it got missed again. And the most frustrating part is I kind of did something that I don't like to do, which is like I oversimplified it. I watered this down for you. What form is this? Standard form, and we don't like to work in standard form. And really what they're asking you to do here to find the y-intercept normally involves converting this to slope-intercept form, which means that you got to solve for y. But I gave you a shortcut for this. All you guys have memorized a shortcut. If this is A, this is B, and this is C, I told you a y-intercept is going to just be C over B. C is 18, B is -2. What's the y-intercept? On the Google form type of platform, what would you enter in? Just put the -9. Jasmine, is that a confusion face? Which graph best represents this equation? What form is that in again? Standard form. Standard form is not good for a lot of things, but if you, what are your two options? You can change this to slope intercept. We normally graph out of slope intercept. So if you want to solve for y, be my guest. But if you just want to get the right answer, I would just find the intercepts. The x-intercept is c divided by a. 12 divided by 5 is 2.4. The y-intercept is 12 divided by -3, which is -4. Which one of these is crossing the x at like in between the 2 and the 3, and then crossing the y at -4?
Dang. What? Oh.
Jordan, any questions? Not going too fast? 6 more to go. Which equation best fits the data in the table? What form are all of these answers in? They're not in standard form. They're in slope intercept. So, yes, we could find the slope and the y-intercept independently, but if you're really smart about this, you're so happy. Because what are they giving you already? I already know that B is -15. So I could like really eliminate those. Then to find the slope, you can cheat a little bit because I even showed you as long as the x's are going in order, you can find your slope by using it as a common difference. What's the common difference between all of these?
Oh, let's see.
The y's. They're all going +9, so I know the answer is going to be D. Because I'm going up 9 from left to right. I'm going up 9. But if you want to confirm this, pick 2 points. I'll pick the ones that have positive numbers, so we don't mess up the sign. And the slope is 3 minus 12 over 2 minus 3, which is -9 over -1, which is this. Yeah. Are you just waving? Hiram! What does that mean? What is f at -3? So, no. What this is asking you is what is y when x is -3? If the -3 is in the parentheses, that means that it's the x. If they would have told you f of x is -3, then they want to know what x is when y is -3. So I look for -3 on the x. I've got like a little line through it. What y are we passing through when x is -3?
Oh, 2. Oh.
What would you enter in? Like, look, if this was a test, yeah, the real fancy formal way to write this would be f at -3 is equal to 2. If this were like the EOC at the end of the year, yeah, I'd tell you to write it that way. But for this particular test, what should you just write in? Just 2, yeah, just write 2. Blanca, what should I do here? These are the ones that you guys actually did pretty well on the test. For where? For x. F at -2 is equal to 3 times -2 minus 2, which is -6 minus 2. Hiram, for the second time today, what's -6 minus 2?
-6. Oh, that's negative.
There you go. This time you got it. Caleb, this one I would argue should have been the hardest one that you probably had. So I don't know how much it was missed compared to the rest. I don't have that in front of me, but not that it's hard, but it's that you guys make careless mistakes. Here's a mistake that you made. An exponent cannot, don't write this down, cannot be distributed over addition. You can distribute multiplication over addition. You cannot distribute an exponent. Yes, there is a shortcut, but that's more of an Algebra 2 thing. Yes. In Algebra 2, you learn something called binomial expansion. There's like a little bit of a shortcut for this. But here, okay, well then let's change it to multiplication. What is squaring the same as? Very good, times itself. So change it to 3a plus 2 times 3a plus 2. So then somebody not named Charles tell me, what could we do now that we couldn't do before? FOIL, yep. 9a squared plus 6a plus 6a plus 4. 9a squared plus 12a plus 4. Gee, thank you, Mr. Murph, for doing all the hard ones for me. Write this expression. So this is like the one with the Sue and the Jack. Write this expression. Notice how this does not say 7 is less. If it said is less, it would be an inequality. It would be a less than sign. But it just says 7 less. So 7 less means something minus 7. What is that something? 2 times a number. So 2 times a number minus 7. 7 has to be negative. And the last one. Also from the last test, this was not very good. But I don't know how easy it is. They're giving you point and a slope. They want you to find the equation. I don't have them here on the board, but this was multiple choice. They just had all the equations written, and you pick the one, but they were all in slope intercept. How do you convert? Well, first you got to write it in point slope. Y, what's the y of the point they're giving you? 4. 4, so y minus 4 equals. Then the slope, which is 8. And then plus 2. You change the sign. Okay. If the x is minus 2, you write plus 2. Y minus 4 is equal to 8x plus 16 plus 4 plus 4. Y is equal to 8x plus. Any questions before I exit stage right? Okay, if you're going to retake this, it needs to be due by tomorrow night.